Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Gworl Next Door Podcast. I'm your host, Sean, aka your number one source of fashionably late, but occasionally great pop culture takes. Today, I am joined by my wonderful partner, Aaron Mills. He's been stuck with me the the past few days. We're having a little bit of car trouble, but it's been, at least on my end, it's been lovely having him around. Today we are going to be discussing My Fake Boyfriend. It is a new-ish movie on Amazon Prime, right? I'm pretty sure it's on Prime. We
Um,
watched it last
yeah.
weekend, and I just thought it was to put it like my parents would say, it was a total hoot. But before we really get into everything, I just want to remind everybody that I am still raising money for Pro-Choice America, exclamation point donate in chat. Otherwise, if you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the description. This is a cause I really care about. And obviously, no pressure to donate, but I just appreciate everybody being here and getting the word out and just kind of just us all being able to show up for what is not a very fun time in history for a lot of people.
Yeah. Difficult for sure. I think that's a fair way of characterizing it. It's great, knowing that we face these challenges that can come together and still, overcome that through this, contribution to this charity. And yeah, it's great that you can be doing it for such a great cause. And yeah, I think that's a great way of kind of getting us into the idea of what we'll be talking about. And I know we're going to also speak more broadly about, rom-com tropes and,
Rom-coms in general, because tonight
yeah,
is romantic comedy night.
it's a nice escape.
It's a good escape. It's like it has
Yeah.
like elements of like wish fulfillment, even though like obviously I'm not single anymore. But it's still nice
Mhm.
to sort of be caught up in all of like those like feelings of like with like the meet cute and
Oh,
just
yes.
the pining, potentially mutual pining, or if I'm being a sucker for pain, unrequited love. I
Times I was
just
deprived of in my youth, but,
Yes. Yes, both all of these experiences being something that like I feel both of us can speak to as queer people who came out well, we both came out at like kind of the basically the end of like our high school careers, right? If I'm remembering
yeah, I
correctly.
think that's fair. I mean, it was around 16, 17. It- yeah, there's a whole story involving my mom and the fact that she didn't actually believe me the first time. She thought I was, she thought I was trying to like pull the walls over eye or joke with her. But yeah, no, she's come quite far. That to say the least. But yeah, it was an interesting experience for sure. But yeah, relatively late. I know for a lot of people, they come out a bit earlier these days, and that's why I'm kind of envious of Gen Alpha because they're gonna have a much easier time, which is great. I mean, you always want like new generations to have it easier than the previous ones.
Well, yeah, and the fact that the vocabulary has evolved so much to become like much more like inclusive and more people's input is being taken on like what is like a good descriptor for a community, and instead of just like people like, for example, like a cisgender person trying to like talk over the trans community and like tell them what labels they're allowed to use and what pronouns they're allowed to use is like just like super icky. It feels like the forum is open up so much more now, especially because of the internet. And I think that's great because like you said, for a lot of us kind of like growing up, we were robbed of a lot of experiences. It feels like even if we were sort of like on, I think you and I were kind of like on different ends of the closet, in the sense that like I felt like I was still like overall like probably a more um accepting community. Is that like fair to say? Like I didn't grow up like
Yeah,
super religious,
no,
so
I think that's fair. I mean, I think it was a transition for me. I think my mom, in a lot of ways, what she was personally going through at the time really played into how she responded. And I definitely think it had a lot more to do with her experience, in the church and kind of her own personal spiritual journey.
mhm.
So, yeah, I would say at the time when I first came out, it definitely was probably a lot less accepting. But over time, I think she's definitely grown. I had to kind of nudge her along the way. She's certainly taken to like vocabulary, and I've certainly tried to make it more accessible to her, understanding that, she does come from a, older generation that, for her, they didn't, it just wasn't something that existed in daily life, right? Because it was, it was concealed. It was in the closet. It was stowed
Like it
away.
was always there. It's just it wasn't
It
like
wasn't
there have
out,
always been queer people, but like there hasn't always been like an open discussion. There hasn't always been
visibility.
like
Yeah.
visibility, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, cause you and I both, I grew up Methodist, and
Mhm.
I don't like associate myself with any organized religion at this point now, but because I did feel like I was coming out in a safer place. Like it didn't take me as long, I feel like, to jump into sort of dating experiences. So I felt pretty lucky that I still had like I came out at the end of my junior year, so I had my entire senior year of high school to kind of get all of my high school queer years out of the way.
Yeah.
I guess like not that I went like too
Hmm.
wild with it, or
Of
like
course.
I definitely didn't have like a bucket list of things I wanted to do, but I could at least like pretend that like I had a cute little thing that I thought was like a relationship in high school that was like
Sure.
that I look back. I mean I look back at it now and think it was silly, but I think even like a month after it ended, I realized like how silly it was. But
Mm.
but that being said, though, it's like there's still lots of obviously I recognize that that's not a universal experience for everybody, and
Sure.
I think even then there are lots of things that I feel like I missed out on. So it's why, like you were saying earlier, rom-coms, especially ones that are like sort of crossover with the coming of age genre,
Yeah.
really appeal to me, and maybe appeal to lots of other queer adults now, because you're sort of like reliving like a high school experience that you didn't get to have. I
Oh, for
think that was
sure.
like I think a really funny observation that somebody brought up to me. I'm trying to remember who it was, but it was a couple months ago, when they were talking about why Euphoria is like so popular with with millennials, a lot of who have like not been in high school in like 5 to 10 years.
Sure.
Um, especially when we think of all of the shows that like I'm not like I'm the tail end of millennial. I think they were technically called zillennials. Um,
Yeah, the older Gen Z people who are kind of like the youngest millennial. It is a little difficult to draw that line. I think you're just on it, because I know my sister. She's kind of around that time as well, where she's in between. So yeah, I definitely can see that. I mean, but I know with the newest rom-coms we're seeing, especially in Gen Z, and kind of topical with what we're discussing with My Fake Boyfriend, you are seeing the kind of the queering of a lot of these rom-coms, which I mean are in a lot of ways retrofitting the older tropes that you typically saw, but like, obviously in a more contemporary fashion. So it is nice to see, and it's great to know that there's like the classic elements you can still have, but you can also kind of bring it to a space that's more accessible to at least people today, right, in their kind of common day-to-day experience, because we can't really relate back to those older rom-coms in the same way,
yeah,
fundamentally.
I definitely, especially but to go back on like what I was sort of saying and like tying it with that, is I feel like for a lot of millennials, the shows we were watching were always sort of like aging up. Like it was always shooting for like the age group that was like above us. Like even if it was just slightly above us. So like if it was middle school, there were all of these shows about high school that you could watch. When we were in high school, there are all these shows about like college, or at least like the early stages of college, or to the very end of senior year that we could watch. Like I think of like Greek, I think of like the later seasons of Glee. I think there's just like so many things, and now where a lot of us are at is like we've regressed back to high school. We're no longer looking at post collegiate life. We're no longer looking at college years. We're just like, no, bring us back to high school where like things were still like retroactively like shitty, but like
Yeah.
but it's still easier than like whatever we're dealing with now. So the fact that there's that element of escapism for like a lot of millennials, but then like you also get to see like, hey, look, this here's a queer version of like what you could have had.
Mhm.
And there were differing sort of camps of opinions when it comes to how normalized you want it within the story. Like, is it like one that like addresses heteronormativity, well, cis heteronormativity in it, or is it one that is just like, this is like completely, this is rainbow world, like, people use pronouns and there's like never like conflict around it. People just date whoever they want to date, and there's like no element of like the closet does not exist in this story. I'm not sure
Mhm.
if you have a preference between the two or not. um
Yeah. I don't even know if you can necessarily say there's like a preference for me. It's one kind of fills, or both, I should say, rather, fill kind of a unique need for me in a lot of ways. So like I kind of appreciate them as standalone things, and it's kind of hard for me to really compare it because I think they're trying to fundamentally, satisfy different things that, an audience would want. And I know their target demographics overlap, but they're not necessarily the same, right? I mean, I think that's where the differences lie. So yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
um I think a show that sort of balances both in a way where it's like it's not exploiting queer trauma every 5 minutes, but it's not removing itself from that
Reality.
element of queerness. Definitely
Yeah.
Heartstopper. I know that was a show. Well, you watched it before me, even though I was the one that introduced it to you.
I love it. No, it's great. I mean, I wouldn't say introduced. You pointed it out on the top of Netflix, but yes, you did get me interested in it. And
I sent you trailers like
I,
over Twitter.
I
I'll
think
tell
I
you.
have to go back and see that, but I'll credit you just for the sake of it. But you've introduced me to a lot of great things. To be fair, animes and stuff that I otherwise wouldn't have really, stumbled across and really enjoyed as much. But yeah, no, Heartstopper is just. I think it's a part of this new class of queer media that we're seeing, where it really embraces like kind of this queer optimism you're starting to see with the idea that stories regarding queer people don't always have to be defined by the traumatic experiences they undergo. It's like there's a place for them in the real world, right? Like they can have the same types of experiences that an average cis straight person is going to have, right? And I just think the experiences definitely help younger people who are kind of just coming up now, and I'm very jealous that they have it because it's just like they can start to identify with those early on. And like you said, they have the lexicon now. They also have the ability to really feel accepted, see themselves reflected on screen, both whether it be small or big, and with TVs and shows and streaming and movies. And I think it's wonderful. So yeah, it's something very, very sweet. I always describe it as like Heartstopper being like a very light, kind of decadent but sweet dessert. It's you kind of have it. It's just a very nice thing to like enjoy. Like you almost really can't complain about it. Even the most cliched elements it has. Like it's just you have to appreciate it for what it is and what it does and how important it is. And I will say it's a very innocent piece, right? It's not it almost handles a lot of the topics that typically I think other queer media tries to tackle from a more mature angle in a way that I feel like younger audiences can definitely access, which I think is really important. And I think it's great that they're answering that kind of and fulfilling that need that's been there.
Exactly, because
Sure.
I think that as much as I love my sex educations, and as much as I love queer narratives that really get to be explosive and frenetic and be like I'll, to be frank, like raunchy. As much as I love those, like um it is nice to have something that's accessible but like isn't sterilized. I think that's a difficult balance to find when it's just like you want like family friendly approachable queerness, but then it's just like, okay, well, do you essentially like sterilize it so much in the process that it doesn't feel queer anymore, or that it doesn't feel like it's addressing certain issues anymore? And I think it kind of just comes down to, as far as like a preference for me is concerned, is like, what's the kind of story that you're telling. And if you're telling like a romance, like obviously like the romance, just make the romance good. You know, if sex is involved with that, then like sure, go for it. If it's not, and it's just like, hey, these are people that are like figuring each other out for like the first time. They're figuring themselves out first and foremost as like teenagers, um, but just like going from there is like, you know, sex isn't even like a thing that a lot of young people are thinking about all the time anyway.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
I think a
Yeah.
lot I think a lot of young people are, I don't want to say scared of sex, but
I
I
was
do
terrified.
I do think that like the conversations around when we think about like birth control and like abortion and like
They're
STIs,
taboo.
and now and now like all of the all of the conversations about monkeypox that are like happening on Twitter, and like specifically with like the studies that seem to be more so vilifying queer men. You know, I think sex is just something that a lot of people like, it's no longer a comforting topic to see on screen. You know, we're more so thinking about like, okay, well, I want to see human connection. Like, do I want to at least see a kiss? Like, yes, of course. Like, you know, don't like wimp out on us like Disney style and be like, oh, the kiss lasts for like 0.5
Yeah.
seconds, and then,
Someone's
and then it
watching.
goes to like a different, it goes to a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
frame immediately.
It's
I can,
perfectly, you can perfectly cut it out. You know,
yeah,
it's
for
it's
China,
built
you
in
know,
such
and
a
making
way.
sure it like goes well for like overseas markets that have like anti-queer laws.
Censors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Effectively.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's cool to see a variety, and um I think the thing that I almost value more now than the romance, but definitely the romance comes first for me a lot because I do want to see cute shit. Um, but I kind of feel like the found family aspect that I've been seeing in like this wave of queer content we've been getting has been really good because like I love the friendships in Heartstopper. I love the friendships in, I mean, Fire Island is like, which we just talked about with like Jared. Um, it very much is just like about like the friendship more than it is about like the like the romance aspect to it. Like there's definitely, there is still like like rom-com elements to like the movie, but it is ultimately still about this like found family that um that goes to Fire Island together every year to connect and be with each other. And I would I think this goes the same for the movie that we will be talking about tonight for the bulk of this conversation, which is My Fake Boyfriend, which again, by the title, like I get, you know, you might
Hmm.
not you might not get that, but it is very much like the relationship between like the main characters, um like well, granted, I guess two of them like are in a relationship with each other, um but like the main, I'll say the main trio is just like so supportive of each other, sometimes to a fault. And
Yes.
and I but like, and I don't know, I just I kind of I like that there's been more of an emphasis on like the friend characters in a lot more Gen Z rom-coms, where like otherwise they'd be like relegated to like comedic relief character that like maybe has like a small B plot. Now it just feels a lot more well-rounded as a story, even if there is still a main hero, heroine, protagonist, whatever, whose like central journey like does involve, you know, romance. Like it still feels like a lived-in world, I guess,
Oh, for
otherwise.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think
I
that's
oh
fair for sure. Yeah, no,
mhm.
go ahead. I was just saying, yeah, I was agreeing.
I guess because I did this to to Jared earlier, um I just want to like throw a little curveball at you, but can you quick give a little blurb about the general premise of My Fake Boyfriend, if you remember
Sure.
it?
Yeah, I mean, as I remember from just, watching it a few nights ago, basically, very over-involved friend, shall we say, played by Dylan Sprouse and Sarah Hyland, which, by the way, it's so hard not to see Dylan Sprouse in like his previous iterations and roles. And I mean, I know him best from Sweet Life of Zack Cody, Sweet Life on Deck. So it's an interesting character to have. And let's just say his outfit does not really work for me in the film. And the hair, oh my
His
god, we'll
hair
get
is a
to it.
lot.
We'll get to it, but yes, basically, our main protagonist, who we follow most of the film, is Andrew. He's played by who is he played by? Is it
Keiynan Lonsdale.
yeah, Lonsdale. Yeah. And basically he got dickmatized and he can't stay away from his very, very toxic boyfriend who just dumped him. They work in like the movie biz in New York City, which is, I mean, does that even exist anymore? I mean, I guess it's a very like niche, market. I mean, it seems like they were like doing some sort of NCIS crime show or whatever. I don't know.
There are very specific shows that still film in New
Yeah,
York.
like I'm just like, who films in New York anymore? But anyway, basically his overall friends, they decide to, try to help him, basically make his toxic boyfriend who just dumped him jealous. And they create this like fake, personality on social media, which is actually very creative. I haven't really seen that in many other movies that acknowledge that like social media can kind of play a role in shaping people's reality. But yeah, they, what's his name? Cristiano is the
Yeah,
fake
Christian.
personality. And yeah, it's interesting. So Cristiano, this is like Dylan Sprouse in the movie is this tech whiz who basically creates this, and it's his so-called nuclear options. So he's been kind of holding it in his back pocket to help out Andrew whenever he's going to need it. So he's just like, Andrew, you need better. You need to stop going back to the man who keeps hurting you, because mind you, they've broken up several times with his toxic boyfriend, and keeps coming back because he's just so dickmatized. Even though, let's be honest, I mean, I think he has a type, which may play into his unwillingness to give up his previous relationship. But anyway, Cristiano, the fake profile, fake personality on social media, goes viral, becomes a sensation online. But then Andrew, at the same time, meets his real life, charmer, boyfriend that he really wants to be with, his dream boat, I should say, Rafi, who I also forget who played Rafi, if you remember.
I can pull up
Was it?
the name now.
Yeah, I'm just interested. I think it
It's
was
Summer Salem.
Sammer Salem. Yeah, Sammer Salem, who is a pretty, I think a relative newcomer to like the film space. I don't know if he's worked on any projects in the past, so I'm pretty unfamiliar. But he actually adds like kind of an interesting performance. He's really the mysterious kind of dreamy guy, very sensitive and soft, and you kind of want to know more about him. So yeah, I think he kind of adds kind of a lot to the cast already. And yeah, that's kind of the premise. He basically, hijinks ensue when, he realizes he actually is in love with Rafi. He's starting to develop feelings, and he's like, well, and to the world, mind you, he's in a relationship with Cristiano, the fake profile, Dylan Sprouse created. And yeah, so basically he has to like contend with the fact that he's made it, clear, because he was trying to make his previous ex jealous by saying he's with someone now who's, this dreamy boy who's fake. And they like Photoshop pictures, which is, I mean, I think the Photoshop is really bad, but in this world, people are very dumb on social media, which, I mean, it's not too far-fetched, I suppose. Um,
It's kind of
and then, yeah,
iconically bad though.
it really is, though, and I think the movie really leans into that. So yeah, that's kind of it. So he has to basically figure out how to get Andrew, or figure out how to get Rafi. Andrew figures out how to get Rafi because he's like, Rafi's my true, love, and he's the one who like knows how to cook. He has this dreamy beard. He's just he's the full
He's a daddy,
he's the full
which
package.
like we appreciate daddy representation in queer
Yeah,
media.
yeah.
I feel like we see like a lot of like twinks or twunks getting together, so like we don't really get like a lot of like appropriate age difference. They are both adults in this case.
They are both
We're not
within
Call Me
the
by
same
Your Naming
age.
this.
Yes, and and also they're interracial.
Yes,
Think about it. I mean,
and
yeah,
it's not just between like a white person and a person of color. It's two
that is
people of
interesting.
color.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually rather fascinating. It's something I didn't realize at first. But yeah, yeah. So it's Andrew must find a way to put into his fake, Cristiano relationship, which is not real, obviously, and figure out how to win Rafi's heart. And hijinks ensue as rom-coms do.
The lie
So
just gets
yeah.
very, very out of hand
Oh,
very,
it does.
very quickly.
It leads to a funeral scene, guys. We
No
have a
spoilers,
funeral
no
in a wedding.
spoilers, but yeah,
Yeah,
no, it gets
it's wild.
it gets pretty wild, and I can't think of like a better a film studio to work on this than BuzzFeed Films. This is a BuzzFeed movie. Don't let it fool you. It is not a terrible movie. It's actually kind of fun. You and I both went into it thinking that like, or at least I can say for myself, when I got like the trailer for it on YouTube recommended to me, obviously I clicked on it because it was just Keiynan Lonsdale like in a speedo. Um,
I mean, yeah.
but I mean, come on. The facial hair really works for him. I'll give him that. But
Yeah.
I clicked on it thinking that like, oh, this movie is going to be in like the genre of like it's so bad it's good. And then like when the early reviews were coming out, I was just like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely going to be so bad it's good. I'm ready to like watch this with my boyfriend. And then like I actually liked it. Like it's not, you know, it's not reinventing the wheel or
It's not
anything.
good, mind you.
It's not good, but it's like
Like it's
fun.
sweet. It's fun and sweet, and I think everyone had fun making it. I think that's you can really tell the film is good in a sense that you can sit it down. It's a popcorn, film, right? Like it's not something you're going to critically look at and examine. Even though there are some deeper commentary, surprisingly about social media, and you kind of do get that through the some of the scenes. We won't spoil it, but you do get the parasocial relationship everyone forms with social media personalities. There's a lot of commentary on that, and excuse me, but yeah, I think in that way it's nice as well. And also all the characters are like appropriate like sexualities with their actors, like it's there. You have like for the first time in a while, I can't think of another example, like, well, other than Fire Island, which I think that also applies, but you're the protagonist who is gay is played by like an actual like gay man. It's actually
I think they identify as queer specifically. But
oh, okay, that's fair. Yeah, at least some variety of queer identity, which actually matches the character within that spectrum. So yeah,
we love
I
queers playing queers.
it's a big change from like the straight guy constantly playing the gay character, and
And then
love
giving like the
fun.
driest closed mouth kiss to their love interest because they're like in the
Yeah,
back of their mind, they're like, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, please don't send me to hell for like kissing this man. Kind of
yeah.
like like they're like, they're down with the gays, but like in the back of their mind, they're still deprogramming things. It's very different from like having like two queer guys be able to understand the specificity of kissing another dude.
Wait, is Rafi and Andrew, are they like real life actors, like actually in a relationship? I thought that was something we discussed, but I don't know if that's true.
No, I don't think they are.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking because I was like, I thought the actor for Rafi, Samner, or Sammer, I can't, I don't know if I'm probably butchering the name, is I knew he's partnered in real life. I just didn't know if it was with him, Andrew's actor.
Oh no, they are both partnered at this moment in time when we're recording it, which is July 12th. They are both partnered, but
Yeah.
like not with each other.
Uh, yeah, which I mean, it's interesting because it's just like, what does that really bring to their performance? And I think you can get a lot more, not only authentic scenes, but definitely a lot more kind of nuanced takes on certain personalities that you kind of typically would see encountered
Hmm.
in these types of films where they are trying to discuss some aspects of queer topics relating to the community as a whole, because I know we discussed this as well, being something in Fire Island as well, and this probably came up in your discussions with Jared. It's like this mentality of the next big thing, right? The greater, until I get to the greater thing beyond what I'm currently with now. So
We
like,
actually didn't talk about next best thing syndrome, so I'm actually glad you brought that up
oh
because
good.
we can talk about it.
Yeah,
We didn't talk about it with like with
I think that can relate to something we talk about in the rom com trope in general. Like the idea of the pastures being greener on the other side, if that's true, and then obviously we can relate that to maybe some of the tropes we'll discuss later. But yeah, I am interested to see what your take is on that. and just generally what your opinion is of the film as a whole, after explaining the premise, of course, not trying to spoil anything, because of course you have to go watch this film.
It's a short movie,
It's very
honestly.
short. It's like an hour 40. It's a
It's
very,
actually no, it's actually just
standard.
90 minutes.
Oh, is it really? I thought it was about an hour 40.
It says here it's like 90 minutes.
Oh, that's even okay. Yeah,
And
that's
that's not
okay.
including the credits, which like I will say it does the epilogue kind of deal where it says like where the characters are now, like before the
Oh yeah,
credits.
like the
Like the
80s
very
style.
cheesy, yeah,
Yeah,
the very cheesy way to do it, which I personally like.
that had some
Um
personality
I
to
think
it.
I think in the past I would have hated it, but because I haven't seen a movie do that in so long, I was kind of
It's
here for it.
cheesy. It's a cheesy film, and it's yeah. It's actually interesting though, because after looking back on the film, because I was more interested reading into its production and everything. Um, it's actually fully Canadian. The production company, it was BuzzFeed, obviously, but distributed by Lionsgate. But I know the most of the people who worked on it. Like were Canadian. So it was interesting to see what their take was of like life in New York, right? I mean, that was kind of that was at least the premise.
I love every non-New Yorker's take on New York.
Yeah. So I just wondered like how much did that affect their portrayal of like New York? Because I mean, obviously, like I think they had some ideas about romanticizing city life and just the idea of the New York social scene. Which, by the way, like again, I don't know what filming happens in New York these days. I mean, everything's gone to Atlanta or like Vancouver or it's like you
There's
are
so
literally.
much in Vancouver at this
Oh my
point.
goodness, yes. But
But
yeah,
yeah, I think it's funny to see every non-New Yorker's take on New York in film, and then like also like a non-LA person talking about LA, because you can tell like how many bad parties the writer has been to, um,
mhm.
by like uh how damning their take on like either city is.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see what they choose to kind of romanticize and highlight. And honestly, I think that can definitely, like the idea of like, Rafi being like a successful chef, which, oh my God, that is like total wish fulfillment. A guy who's like hot and can cook for you. I mean, can't be me, but it's like, that is, yeah. I mean, that is interesting to say the least, especially with his successful restaurant and also him doing like cooking classes, like, Gordon Ramsay. But of course, he's so soft and gentle and humble and sweet. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on in this film. So it's appreciated at the very least.
So one thing that I wanted to ask you, because you haven't been to New York or LA, right?
No.
So judging from movies alone, are you an LA girly or a New York girly?
Ooh, that's tough.
I know I'm
Well,
starting a
based
war.
on I was about to say, well, based on what some people have told me, I guess I would probably be an LA girly. I don't know.
Some people being
I
me.
mean, I mean, a few others as well, but yes. I mean, what I'm referring to, but yeah, I feel like LA would probably fit my vibe. Beautiful people. I wouldn't
Beautiful
like the
people,
fact that
beautiful
there's not.
problems.
I mean, yes, but I wouldn't like the fact that there's no four seasons, so it'd be a little bit too warm for me. But I still think I'd probably fit into it better because I'm a lot more affable and sociable. Even though I feel like I'm an introvert, I feel like I would thrive because like there's a lot of people out there who are kind of like me. I don't know. I guess it's just where the quirky people go. New York seems a little too serious for me. I
See,
don't know.
my,
Too
my
serious.
reasoning my reasoning behind pegging you as like an LA girly is like I feel like you would be an LA girly, but you'd be like an East Coast, like mysterious East Coaster who like moves to LA and like feels like a fish out of water. LA is so hustle.
Yeah, which I may not jive well with. So that's
There's a
just why I
lot
would
of
probably
social
say,
climbers.
yeah. I don't like fake people. I think I would definitely be put off by that culture. So I'd probably go to New York because at least people are upfront with, you know, how they are often. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are fake and really trying to like network and constantly trying, because at least in New York they'll acknowledge they're trying to network versus in LA
Yeah,
They'll
LA will
pretend like they're
start with like they invite you to something that seems like relatively innocuous, and you'll realize it's a networking event.
yeah. And
Like
I'm just like,
too
at
late.
least New York is upfront with what they want. I feel like LA is very deceptive. They try to be very friendly and they pretend they care about you when in reality they really don't. So yeah.
Again, judging solely from from like movies and TV shows.
I mean, that's how they're portrayed. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I've never been to either place. It's actually funny. I mean, I already told you once we were supposed to have a family reunion in LA. I know it was ultimately canceled because some parties dropped out and they could no longer afford it. I was very sad because I was like 13 at the time, and my perception of LA was like, Hollywood, Paramount Studios and
Don't ever tell a
Disneyland.
Californian that.
Oh, really? Oh, well,
No,
because I mean,
I don't think it. No, nobody will care. I just thought it was funny.
okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, like Anaheim, I know Disneyland's in Anaheim, and I know there's differences. Like I know not all of that's in the same place. And I know a lot of people who actually know LA probably think of it more as like, oh my God, it's like a hellhole with like the traffic and it's the people just kind of on top of each other. But I don't know. It has Santa Monica Pier, Muscle Beach, I don't know.
Yeah, I know you would love Muscle Beach.
Well, okay. Wow. I feel personally attacked there. I have to say, I think you would probably enjoy it a bit more. I mean, I don't know. I don't gaze
I
as
mean,
much as.
I'm not afraid to say that I did enjoy it when I was there.
Oh,
The few times I've been to Muscle Beach, I very much enjoyed it. Very
I didn't.
respectfully, obviously, but
I didn't know you went though. That's
yeah,
interesting.
no, I have.
Obviously, this was before us, but I am curious. What was the hottest guy you saw there?
The hottest, well, I can't.
Well, describe him. Come on.
I mean, I don't really know how to like describe. They had like nice tattoos. I really appreciate the tattoos.
Yeah. Well, I know you're a sucker for tattoos. You're so.
I am
They
like
can.
as long like I think there are definitely some that are like misses for me, but like I think like a good sleeve I can like appreciate.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I definitely am still aiming to get one once I get the body completely in order. But I mean, I think I'm in a good place as is. So I don't know. I think I can hold my own on Muscle Beach. Probably not, but you could at least try to see me try.
I mean, I feel like I mean you definitely do better than me. I look like a friggin' toddler. So
Yeah, I know. They would think you were like lost from the school trip or something.
I
Like, what
know.
are you doing here, sir?
Yeah, no. The last time I was at Muscle Beach, I had like a pretty long layover um from Japan, like out of like LAX. So I was just like, okay, well, I want to go to the beach. I don't want to like, I don't want to be here
Yeah,
right now. I want to look at cute guys respectfully, and I basically I didn't want to be stuck in an airport. Um,
yeah.
so I took like a I took the bus out to like a nearby hotel that was closer to the beach, and then I did like a mini Uber to get there. That was my life hack, is like not to get like an Uber like out of LAX.
Oh, that's
You take the bus to the hotel and then you call an Uber from there.
Yeah, that's the right way. I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens when I go there one day. I mean, hopefully, I get to spend some time there and actually get to experience what it's like. Long Beach. Like I know there's like a lot of destinations I can still go to. Venice Beach. Malibu. All the little places.
We're
So
gonna be I hope so too. I hope I get to go with you so we can be like really basic tourists.
I know. I want to like get in all that shit. I mean, I know the locals will like hate us, but I mean, I feel like so many people have
No, because
mistaken.
very clearly so many people thought you were a native.
Well, I was about to say, like, everyone thinks I'm from the West Coast when I introduce myself, which I mean, I'm gonna assume is not in a problematic way. Though there have been some instances where I've raised an eyebrow because I had a few people, not even so much the person I referred to last time, the shop owner, but like the other person who like thought I was from Oakland, and I'm just like, huh, I wonder why you had that assumption.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
they could have said worse though,
I mean,
to
that's
be
true.
fair. Like,
Compton.
not to racially gaslight you or
I mean,
anything, but like
people.
I feel like if they said like Compton, for example, I would literally jump over the counter and like strangle them. I want to sort of bring it back to what we were talking about with next best thing syndrome.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually very applicable to this discussion, and something that really came up with my fake boyfriend, and was tackled briefly, albeit, in Fire Island. But yeah, I happen to think that's pretty prevalent, at least in my experience. People always kind of like thinking about that ultimate person they're looking for, right? And I think it's the nature of how queer people in general are socialized to think about their relationships and understand them as something that should always match the ideal, that we imagined to be the case, right? That kind of place where we think we've arrived, right? We have the perfect partner, right? It's upwardly mobile, right? We have the experiences that we want to have that we're kind of deprived of early on. So I can definitely understand where it comes from, because we want to kind of spoil ourselves when we've not really been able to experience the same things that a lot of other people have, right? And non-queer people especially, and we've been denied that. And I think we like a certain element of we won't settle, right? We'll constantly trying to find ways to, I like to say it, sabotage our own relationships. I mean, I can't generalize here, obviously, but it's something that I definitely have encountered. I can't say I've ever personally felt it's applied to me, though, because in a lot of ways, I wasn't interested in relationships early on. I know it's different for people who get into the dating scene kind of early. So yeah, I'd just be curious to see your thoughts and, see how that was manifested maybe in, my fake boyfriend, and how that kind of applies to your experience as well.
Sure. Well, I would say that settling does kind of play a little bit of a role when people think of like the next best thing, because like I feel like when you put yourself with like somebody that is like, oh, like they're like not a 10, but like they're somebody that keeps me from like feeling lonely. And then as soon as the next person comes along, it's like so much easier to see that next person as a 10. And it makes you feel
Yeah.
like it makes you feel like there is like upward mobility when it comes to um I guess I can cuss in this one because this isn't like the family friendly one, but it's like upward mobility for fuckability.
Yeah.
Um
I mean, it's shiny object syndrome, right? You always look at what you don't have currently in the person, and you're like, hey, I can always try to find something better, right? Like there's a better version out there for me. For me, it was like, well, I don't think I'm going to get better. So I never really assumed.
oh,
I mean, but of course, in you, I found someone who I've truly been satisfied with. And I just, every single day, I always find another reason to really fall in love with you all over again. So it's never a situation where I'm always looking at the, quote unquote deficits of our relationship. I'm always looking at, what are some areas I foresee us, growing closer and, or, understanding each other better, about, right? And I don't know, it's just your mindset, and I definitely think it plays into that type of mentality of shiny object syndrome, right? um
mhm.
so yeah, or next best thing, or whatever you want to call it, next best fuckability index. I don't
Upward mobility for fuckability.
know. Oh no, that rolls off the tongue quite well, doesn't it? Oh my goodness. But yeah, I definitely think that plays a role in some of the plots we start to see when um you know queer people are presented kind of in these rom-com situations. Though in the situation of my fake boyfriend, he was literally just stigmatized, like
He really
utterly.
was.
Like, I don't understand why though, because like it's not like his love interest or his ex was like ugly, but like I just thought his love interest in the film, like Rafi, was like much better, like on every level.
I mean,
Like I
yeah,
don't,
like like no shade to Nico's actor, obviously, because he did a great job at making me absolutely fucking despise this person.
which I mean, yeah,
Like
good
literally,
job.
like literally cheating on your boyfriend, like on set.
After
Um,
making him feel bad for like, yeah, like a number of things, essentially saying like, you don't even deserve me. But then like he proves himself by saying, hey, like I really want to make this work. And then the next day you're literally like,
I mean,
cheating.
yeah, it's
Spoiler.
it's
But
it's
yeah.
the possessiveness for me, to be
Oh
honest.
man, it's the control he feels like he needs to exert, which I think is also a topic that's under discussed in the queer community. I mean, I think we're not so readily able to call out each other about these things, because I don't think anyone wants to ever be accused of being unfair, shall we say, in light of the experiences, especially the trauma that a lot of people have. Because I think it does get back to a traumatic, and this does tie back into the broader, next best thing syndrome. I think, a lot of people have been socialized, especially, growing up queer, like they're not really understanding their own worth in a lot of ways. And I feel like those self-esteem issues can definitely translate to, those types of behaviors that you start to see in relationships that are particularly toxic, especially with Nico's case of, needing to be in control, constantly having to exert that, show his quote unquote dominance, right? Even when he like pretends to not be interested in our, protagonist, Andrew, he secretly still wants to control every aspect of Andrew's life. And it's, yeah, it does start to like, you wonder like, where is this, mentality coming from? And, my psychoanalysis brain, armchair psychologist goes off, and I'm just like, okay, clearly there's some sort of trauma, right? I mean, this comes from a place of, lack of self-worth, a view of deficiencies in his own abilities, his capacity to be loved, right? I mean, I would question all of these things, and it does go back to a place of, maladaptive attachment, right? Certain attachment issues that start early on. But yeah, anyway, not to get over
that's like a much smarter appraisal for this movie than I personally would have given it.
It's overanalyzing. It's overanalyzing.
He's like a pretty flat villain. I will say that, like right now, he's a flat villain. He doesn't need to be anything more than that. I don't feel the least bit sorry for him when like anything bad happens to him in this movie. And like that's fine. I think it's okay to have villains that like we don't need to all have like Killmongers or like the Mandarin and Shang-Chi. Like we don't they don't always have to be like well thought out, well written villains, because the main character is already his own main antagonist.
Yeah. Well, it just makes me more curious to learn about Nico's story, right? I mean, I know he's a very shallow villain. He's a very flat character. He's a static character. He's not a round character, obviously. He doesn't really have a lot of dimensions to him. I mean, he's downright psychotic in some scenes, though. I mean, especially the waiting outside the apartment. I mean, that was on another level. Like, and again, that part did feel a little wish fulfillment, because like, who's been in a situation where your ex is that obsessed with you? I mean, I don't know. I can't say I've ever experienced that, but I mean, I feel like a part of that's the writers being like, hey, like this is kind of a dream scenario for some people who want like,
no, this is the wish fulfillment moment of being able to give that shitty ex like the the big fuck you, like the middle finger, just being like, yeah, like I'm better off without you, thank you, next, kind of deal. And it's just like most of us don't get that. I feel like a lot of relationships, at least that I've been like, have kind of just like fizzled out to like a it's like, oh, this isn't working, and then we just like stop just stop texting. I mean, I think the nature of like a lot of our relationships usually ends with distance, so it makes sense that there isn't like a big blow up fight that like happens in person where I get to like kick someone out of my apartment, my fancy New York apartment that I can somehow afford off of single income.
Of course. And he's not even an actor though. That's the thing. Andrew's like a stunt double.
He's a stunt double, but he's also a personal trainer and like a self-defense course person, I guess.
That's true. So even he's working like several jobs, at least 2 jobs we know of, to like afford that like fucking loft, that IKEA home of his. Oh my goodness. I love that in the movies. I'm just like, these interior decorations, like, boy.
I will say his bedroom's kind of boring. I don't know that I could like.
It's rather bland. I have to agree. Yeah.
Like not to nitpick set design, but.
Yeah. No, I think they could have done better, especially with the color palette. And I don't know. I mean, this is.
Let's be fair. We don't spend a lot of time in there because there's not nearly enough fucking in this movie.
That is probably the most disappointing part, especially for a film that, I mean, it is supposed to be kind of shock value, especially with like the ending, like the whole funeral scene. Like, I felt like there should have been at least like, there should have been one sex scene, and okay, I'm not one to usually demand stuff like this, but it would have been nice given the suite of actors we were working with. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it would have been that I don't know. I will say, like, the natural chemistry between Rafi and Andrew, I mean, I was ready. I mean, it
It's
was
just putting like the two dolls together and saying like now kith, but like it's
it,
instead it's like now fuck.
no,
Um
seriously. Like it would
like
make
I
anyone
give from a pacing perspective, like I do want to throw it out there for reviewers if you do plan to watch it, that like pacing wise it does make sense why the main character and his love interest like don't go that far.
it makes
um
sense. It
it makes
does.
sense, but I just feel like personally we missed out a little
We
bit. Like we could
did.
even see him hook up with the toxic guy.
I know. Yeah, it was interesting because I honestly thought they were going to go that way, given the
We saw like
film.
one ass in this movie.
I know the film kind of gave that tone early on. You were like, okay, they may have like a sexy, but all we got was a little peck. Well, actually, no, we got a making out scene, I guess, towards the end, but like not enough, not nearly enough, especially with like the actors. Which again, like Rafi's actor, I know he's been in some other stuff, but oh man, he's so fine. I
I
have to say,
know.
like he's he's quite something. But yeah, clearly my priorities are in order. So I but I mean, I do appreciate like well-written characters, but it also helps if like they're hot. So I mean, I will probably, pay attention to them a little bit more. Let's just
Would you
say.
call him a well-written character?
I As far as the mysterious slash alluring love interest, I think he's one of the better written ones. I don't think he's the best though. Like obviously, I think he doesn't really have a lot to do in this film, which is by nature the structure of a type of film like this, where like the love interest, we don't really have an opportunity to get that dramatic irony in certain scenes where we understand what the love interest is kind of going through, right? Because we don't really know his thought process. We kind of can
Yeah,
only
all we
get.
know is he has like a similar dating experience to the main character in the sense that he kept going back to the same toxic ex.
Yeah, which I mean, I think plays a role later on in how he reacts to Andrew, of course. But
Well, yeah, because he hates dishonesty.
I
So
mean,
that's
yeah,
like the whole. So that's like the whole like drama behind it. Just like, oh my god, well that means he definitely can't find out about this lie. How long can I keep stringing this out? I didn't even want this lie to start in the first place, but I'm like benefiting it from it now, like financially and socially. So like, what do?
exactly. And also I think you do get to discern some of the feelings in the scenes, and that's honestly not the writing, that's just the natural chemistry. Like Andrew and Rafi's actors, the chemistry between them, I was convinced from the second they saw each other that they were meant for each other. Especially him guiding his hand. I mean, that was so cliched with the cutting board scene and the cooking class, or like,
I think it was really funny that they spent most of the movie, at least during the pining phase, just sort of like trying to suss out whether he likes guys or not, even though he's
oh
like
yeah.
very clearly into the main character.
So obviously was. I mean, he took a liking to him right away. I mean, essentially ignoring, like, there was this
He just walks in on his cooking class, doesn't pay, doesn't
I know. And then there was like these girls in the class, these like women who like were clearly swooning over him and like, hey, like, can I get some help? And like he like just ignores them and just goes straight for our main character. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So
I think that's something that I really respect about this movie. That like, granted, obviously this isn't the only movie to do it, but I need more romances to do this because it's fucking hot. I think mutual pining is like really is really fun, and the fact that like it's not only just like the main character who's very actively interested in this guy, and the only thing that's holding him back is like one, not knowing if he's like gay or not, and two, like the lie, and being like to the entire public he is in a
with
relationship
Christiana,
with this
yeah.
fake person, but
Mhm.
obviously the love interest like isn't on social media, so he doesn't know that. But like so he's still interested in this guy, and then meanwhile like the love interest, even if we're not following his like internal monologues or day-to-day life, like we can still tell that he's very clearly interested in Andrew.
Oh, absolutely.
And he literally makes so many excuses just to see him, which like, but like it's not in a creepy way. It's just like, oh, like
It's a very
I
cute.
heard it's like, oh, you told me that you taught self-defense courses like at this gym, like, so I thought maybe I'd like You know, I'd sit on my
I
classes, you
know.
sit on one of mine, and then they're just like, oh hey, do you want to spar? And it's like,
Yeah. I mean, there, again, we go back to wish fulfillment. I wish I came across situations like this where it was so clear that there was some, spark, and like you played this cat and mouse game of like them going after you and you going after them, and you not realizing like, oh, do you just one another like each other, and like you said, the mutual pining,
I think
and
a lot of that chase is sort of lost for in like
yeah,
real life queer relationships just
oh, for
because of
sure.
how they have to develop in most spaces.
I mean, yeah, grinder.
Especially if you live like where we are, where like there isn't really like a robust queer community. There's like queer people, but it's not like a community. And because
Yeah.
of that, there's not really a way to organically meet people outside of like,
Oh yeah.
dating apps, for example. So because of that, everybody's like working off like of a different schedule. Some people are only there to hook up. Some people are relationship only. Some people like only want friends. Some people say they only want friends just so they can lead you on for several months. Like
Well,
everybody's, it's its own unique beast. So like being
yeah.
able to have like a very historically heteronormative type
Trope.
of chase
Yeah.
in like this movie that can really only exist within this genre is very again, it goes back to the wish fulfillment aspects of it, which I will always love about romantic comedies,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
or even just romances in general. But I think romantic comedies sort of like romantic what I like about romantic comedies is that like they at least know that they're cheesy.
Yeah.
And I feel like a romance that takes itself too seriously like doesn't always work for me, because romance to me is like that weird combination of being like both very grounded but then like also within like your own little world.
Yeah.
um
Well, I think it's also the opposite.
I feel like straight up romance is like very much like it's within like the author's world. Does that make
Yeah.
any sense?
No, I understand that. And I think there has to be a certain level of like awkwardness to it, like a
Yeah.
little tinge of cringe, right? I think I say that because I can think back to even our relationship as a parallel, right? Like I think there's some like out of like statements I say to you taken out of context would be very cringy, but like they're a lot more meaningful, and they're not cringe necessarily in the context I'm using them, because it's developed along this like coherent pathway, right? Like where we kind of get invested in each other, and this is almost kind of what needs to happen when you're dealing with these types of romantic situations, right? Like you said, this world created around both characters, and you're kind of seeing them individually react to things we would react to in real life, right? I mean, kind of different elements of, like you said, the cat and mouse game, or like the mutual pining, right? Thinking of the first date, right? Or the interactions they have, like albeit fleeting, right? What the that kind of builds to in terms of the deeper like feelings people have for each other. So yeah, I think that definitely plays a role in making these relationships more believable, right? Because it is something that's never going to be perfect or scripted, and they're going to often be cliched, right? Because that's how we kind of can relate to these experiences without feeling embarrassed, because we know that's how we've come to understand what these relationships mean and these romances are, through these kind of stages, right? Where you're like, we're kind of infatuated in the beginning, we're becoming more seriously invested in each other's lives, we understand each other emotionally, right? And with each stage, you kind of get those little quirks that kind of define, and make what a really make special the relationship itself, like what makes the relationship, special ultimately. So
Yeah.
yeah.
For all the girls out there who benefit from our obviously so great advice, what would you say is a good recipe of, I would say like of ground rules, I guess, for like a good first date if you were looking for that romantic comedy kind of like dream boy or girl or whoever?
Oh man, yeah, that's a great question. Oh, ooh, I'd be interested to see how people would respond to that. What are you thinking? when it comes to that? Like when you
So here's the thing. I want to preface this by saying that like I am incredibly sex positive. I'm somebody who does not have a problem with hooking up on the first date at all. And there are plenty of movies that are also sex positive in this way, where like the main characters and like their love interests like do hook up immediately, and then like the relationship grows from there. Um, I'm not making that movie though. So my
Mhm.
my movie is going to be obviously super prim and very prude. Um no, but like I think a
Victorian
good
romance for you?
what?
I said Victorian romance for you. Would you
I
make a
mean maybe a little bit. No, I mean so I would say that for if you want like something that feels like very much like a butterflies romance, I would say that like I mean you and I were talking about this earlier about how underrated coffee dates can be.
Oh, for
But
sure.
it's just like when
Yeah,
you think of like big dinners, it's just like the dinners can get so expensive, and then it turns into like a whole like who pays for what kind of deal. And it feels like you're kind of just sussing out people's finances at that point. Like, I don't want to think about my bank account. My bank account doesn't want to think about my bank account.
sure.
So all of like the complicatedness of that gets like removed by just like you know a little coffee date that like confirms that this other person like exists, because on these dating apps catfishes be catfishing.
Oh, yes.
um I feel like it's like my biggest fear of like investing in like a full night out of like food with somebody and like maybe drinks afterwards or whatever is like within the first 2 minutes I'm going to be really bored with them, at least if it's like a coffee date. I'm like, okay, I'm like 2 sips into my chai latte because I'm a basic fucking bitch, and I'm like, I'm on my phone.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's fair. I like the idea of like a less pressured first interaction because, first impressions are everything, right? I think everyone puts a lot of emphasis on that when it comes to the apps, which is also another frustration I have, like that we're, as a queer community, you're kind of forced into these spaces where people kind of come in with the presumptions of what's already going to take place. And you can't just have those organic like meetups, right? Like,
Yeah,
hey, like, I see you on the street and like, hey, can we go out sometime? Like that's never going to happen, right? Like unless you're in a very large city where, or even in a neighborhood, like even in New York City, I don't think you can do that. Maybe in a neighborhood, like maybe in like a space where like it's historically known
and
that it.
I'm like wearing a crop top that says "Got Dick?" question
I
mark
mean,
on it.
yeah, pretty much. Like it's even then it's hard to kind of put yourself out there, take the step forward, understand that it's possible to receive a request. Like I could never envision that as a child, and even now I'm just like that was never going to be a thing for me, an option. You know, as opposed to like obviously you have very problematic like catcalling. It's very ingrained in our culture that it's completely fine to like just go up and like kind of presume that someone's available for you to go out and take out, and we see that in media and it's just everywhere. So yeah, I think going back to the original point of the coffee day, like it's less pressure, and it kind of is an opportunity for you to be a little bit more authentic with yourself and not try to put up this facade, right? Which I think in the beginning everyone tries to do, right? You're trying to shape the reality of the person you're getting with to what you think they want to see, but you don't actually know what they want to see because you're not even really trying to be honest with yourself. So yeah, I think it's important in the beginning to take things slow. And again, I'm very sex positive as well. I mean, obviously, but yeah, I don't know.
Obviously,
Of course, obviously. I mean, I think you could certainly speak to this, but
I am not commenting on this for everybody out there. Um, I
but
have never
yes,
had sex once in my life.
I'm sure.
Um,
You are a proper Victorian gentleman gallivanting around the principled commons. I don't know.
we can only do hand stuff with my father's permission.
Of course, you have to go to DisneyChannel.com with parental permission as well. So
Exactly. Yeah.
you're a good boy, well behaved. But
Yeah. Club
yeah,
Penguin account before marriage is not okay.
that's the ultimate cardinal sin, though. You
Yeah.
got to be
But
honest.
but I do think that like I think other kind of I get that coffee dates like sound very basic. I'm sure lots of people actually do them, and this is like a very cold take.
In like
But
cities.
it's like, I personally, I want to see what a guy's like during the day. Like I want to see you like in
Yeah.
full lighting. I don't want to like see your like perfectly manicured angles in like
Oh
your
man.
bathroom lighting, where like
That is so big
you're
on
like
social
showing off
media.
like your abs, or you know, or that's like super like filter. Which, like, don't get me wrong, I love me a good filter. I don't think that there's anything wrong with like filtering your pics like in the way that you aesthetically want to be perceived, obviously. But you know, that opens you up to criticism of just like, okay, well, I'm sorry that I don't look like Valencia in real life, but that's, you know, this is me. And I think, one, being able to see someone what they're like during the day, so like how they dress, how they present themselves, depending on the time of day you pick your coffee date. Does this person get up in the morning? Would they get up in the morning for me? um and then also,
Yes.
like, I feel like there's so much pressure with like dinner to be like, to like hook up,
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I
which
still
doesn't
think
make
there's
sense to me, because like
yeah.
if you're a bottom and you just had like a 3-course meal, that
Oh
is like,
man.
that is off
That's a lot
limits.
of expectations. That's a lot of expectation to put on someone, for sure.
And then it's like, you're gonna take me to like fucking Olive Garden. I'm gonna have so much like pasta. It's just like, it's not
Oh man.
approved. It's not
Okay.
Postmates approved.
Yeah. It's not very it's very nice. Yeah, you're right. It's not a bottoms approved Postmates order, and I think there should be more consideration given to that. I mean, but this kind of goes with the unrealistic like beauty standards that exist in the community, like, and actually unrealistic like portrayals of like sex, which I mean doesn't obvious it's not exclusive to like the queer community, right? But
Yeah,
like the way gay sex is presented, like it's
I
honestly
know. There's no
baffling sometimes.
foreplay.
It's
There's
just
like,
they go straight into it. Like
there's no painting.
I'm just
Like,
like, what is
give
going
give
on?
me a gay romance where someone paints and like they recover from it.
I was about to
That
say,
is
like,
sexual positivity to me. That is the queer experience I want on screen.
yeah, I mean, it's baffling. Like that's the only word I can really land on because sometimes honestly like amazing, like they just literally get right to it. It's effortless. There's the person at the bottom is just like no pain. It's just straight. It's like, and you don't even really see them like lubricate most of the time. Honestly, yeah, there's like not a lot of time dedicated to seeing the actual mechanics of it, which is it's really weird because if you go through the trouble of depicting it, why are you gonna like overtly romanticize it, right? Like, I understand people don't want to really see people like lube up and everything, but like at least have it like some time separate these actions. Like, and it's just sad because it leads people to really have a false impression of like what it's gonna be like, which I think
Exactly.
is
Like
encountered a
I
lot.
think, if it, like, for me, if you're not going to, go into like, the super grounded territory of it, and you're going to go, like the girls approach, where it's like very um where you're showing everything, and it's going to be very slow and very awkward. There's that school of thought, but then like there's also like, hey, like, we want this to be very stylized, we want this to be like very hot, like in the moment. Like, that's fine, but like, I need there to be like enough stylization in it for me to be able to like disconnect like how like ridiculous the situation is. Because like, if my disbelief is suspended because like, oh yeah, like everybody is just like bisexual lighting is everywhere, the music is like super loud, everybody is acting like they're super stoned, like, sure, fine, like this isn't going to affect my body dysmorphia at all. But like, if someone is just like, you see them like spit in their hand once and then they just like put it in, and like all the bottom does is like let out like a little gasp and like maybe blink twice, and
Yeah.
then and then like it's just like regular sex. I'm just like,
Yeah, no. And it's just like you lose the passion too because it's very clear that like, they're trying their best to seem like it's in the moment, spontaneous, and not at all. They're either not at all like not doing it or they're not at all like not hopped up on drugs, which I mean sometimes they are. So it's just yeah, it can be a lot and from that I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done in making those portrayals a bit better. I mean, I know they're catering to what people necessarily want and they wouldn't make it otherwise, but we almost have to like change that aspect of the culture. I mean, again, this goes with next best thing syndrome. And I mean, again, all stemming from the fact that my next boyfriend definitely should have had a sex scene, but it's okay. Even if it wasn't like good per se, I still would have welcomed it between Rafi and Andrew. But that can remain in my head canon. The fact that they hooked up shortly after the end of the movie, but who knows? Allegedly, of course. But yeah, with that, discussing next big thing syndrome, kind of what are your broader takeaways that you kind of want to see going forward when it comes to the queering of the rom-com genre as a whole? Like, what do you kind of want to see tackled? What do you think my fake boyfriend could have tackled more or better? I mean, obviously it was a very small, low stakes movie, in scope. It's pretty inoffensive, but what do you think?
Sure. Well, as a local he they, I would love to see more non-binary representation in a lot of these queer films. I would love to see as much as I love, seeing gay men sort of hang out all the time on screen and be able to have love stories that like aren't traumatic. Like I need something for my sapphics as well. Because I can't think of
Oh, for sure.
I can't really think of a non-traumatizing or like sad like lesbian film that like says the word lesbian that's come
Half
out.
of it.
I mean, I
Yeah.
I want, okay, here's the thing. I want one that's cute and they end up together.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, I thought you wanted just one that they were covering each other, but that's fair. I think there definitely needs to be more parody when it comes to the type of queer films we're seeing, because yeah, they do overwhelmingly focus on
By the way,
cis men
this
usually.
is an invitation for you to like tell me in the comments or in chat like your recommendations for sapphic stuff that's like not sad. Or
Oh,
if it
that's
is sad, it's only
on that.
Phoebe Bridgers sad, and then it becomes good by the end. But
Of course.
I guess Crush. I'll say Crush was good.
Yeah, that was actually surprisingly good for me. I did appreciate the non-stereotypical portrayals they went with, especially when it came to, just like queer women in general, which I mean, yeah, they could have easily gone down the route a lot of these films go down, especially with, the type of archetypes we see, the way the plot typically resolves. And it was kind of nice to see like the love interest being someone who's like I know we didn't really plan to talk about this that film per se, but I do remember this stood out to me, the fact that the love interest themselves was someone who um had interest in the main character, but they were like too oblivious to see it because they were just swept up in someone else. So the idea that what was playing in front of you was actually like what you needed all along.
Yeah.
No, I
I mean,
appreciate
I
that.
like that there was a love triangle that was all girls. I think in general, I want more queer love triangles.
Yeah.
Um, I would love I will say they have to be very careful with how they do this, obviously, because it can go very poorly if they don't. But I think like a bisexual love triangle would be like fun
Oh,
too.
that would be quite salacious, though. I mean,
Because
you
like
just
I've really only seen that with the very not great but like in a good way Gossip Girl reboot
oh man,
like has like a bisexual love triangle.
it's chaotic.
It's very chaotic, but like that's what makes it fun. Is like everybody can be into anybody.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and it's just like so unpredictable, and it's almost like the
Like
writers.
obviously, like granted, like this is not me saying that bisexuals are like are attracted to like everyone they see. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just
Yeah,
saying that like when you have a cast of characters where romantic possibilities can be extended to like literally everybody in the cast, like it's give me that drama. I want that
I
drama.
mean, yeah, it could be quite interesting to see. I mean, imagine like if you throw like a poly person in there. I mean, literally, it could be quite the show. Honestly, I
That
mean, yeah,
too. I would love I would love a story that has like a throuple or like a polyamorous sort of setting for
Oh, well, you have to
characters.
watch some more like Ryan Murphy then. Like I said, you
I mean,
uh the
probably, yeah.
the politician has a pretty, in season 2 definitely features a throuple situation, though in a political context, so it's interesting to see how they explore that. But yeah, it's one of the better portrayals I've seen for sure. uh,
Hmm.
yeah.
What about you though? To like answer your own question.
Oh, I guess I would want to see. I guess I would want to see some of the tropes flipped on their heads, and I guess I can narrow in a specific one that's pretty interesting. The idea of the um, protagonist pursuing the love interest, and it should be like the love interest pursuing the protagonist. And I'd love to see more exploration into the love interest themselves, because they're usually pretty mysterious in these films. And I felt like
Hmm.
that was something with Rafi. Like we always had to find stuff out by like context and reading between the lines. And it's just like, why can't we
That's
ever
a
explore?
specific type of love interest that you want though. Like you purposely leave stuff out because like that they have to be like projectable.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like I want to reverse it, like flip the point of
No, I
view,
agree
right?
with you. I'm just saying that like
Yeah, but I understand why they do it. It's a tried, true method. It works because it's a great narrative device, right? Like it makes it easy to kind of fit. You pretty much are allowed to project whatever you want onto that love interest, and it makes it pretty like non-serious to do so. So like it's a pretty easy writing device. But I think honestly it's pretty lazy. Like I think there could be a lot more work done in terms of making the love interest compelling on their own, not so much because the audience can project anything onto them because they're, dreamy McDream boy, dreamy McDream person. But like, you can also just like generally get a sense of how they feel about the protagonist. So it would be interesting to see like a narrative flip where we're following the love interest without knowing, but then we flip back to the protagonist. But it would be interesting to see how their relationships with people reflect on how they go about meeting the character and understanding the protagonist. We kind of follow, the person who's going after, right? The pursuer and the seeker. So kind of flipping that relationship, because it is a different dynamic in terms of like the hierarchy that we generally see in these types of films.
I will say a thing that I've been kind of missing. As much as I obviously don't stand queer trauma and don't stand, like the uh, movies where the gay person like ends up like heartbroken. At the same time, I do miss a good breakup movie for like gay characters. I think that would be like one thing that I want for us to like sort of like round out your last question. Um was I want a good heartbreak movie for gays that like or just the queers in general, but it's
Yeah,
like not related to being queer.
I agree. I think there needs to be a mature film that deals with the fact that you're going to strike out with, the person you're trying to go after. And in the end, it's realized that the protagonist didn't need them to like, emotionally rely on, right? Like they learned emotional independence, not, to become unhealthily, attached or, enmeshed with a particular person they were obsessing with. So yeah, I feel like a respectful denial of that kind of wish fulfillment we typically see would kind of help people temper expectations when it comes to like the real life situations they come with. And yeah, I mean, I think this is actually something that related to a discussion we had in regards to the recent Thor film, which I'm not going to spoil. I would
Yes, no, that is
recommend
going to be a
people.
different episode entirely. And I
I
promised myself I
know.
was going to wait a couple of weeks this time instead of what I did with Multiverse of Madness, which was like do a stream about it literally the weekend after I saw it.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will say it did bring up a discussion about how that movie resolved and how people kind of deal with their own internal existential crises, if that makes sense. Like the idea that they can't have an identity outside of certain things. And I think in this case, I think it should be something that's tackled, as a top line issue in a lot of these films is, you know, it's okay to be alone, right? And I know that's hard for a lot of people to realize, but growing your own sense of personality, your own sense of self, your own self-worth, right, independent of another person. I think that's something that definitely needs to be embraced as a meaningful alternative to, just being desperately alone, which I think there is a difference between, like, being alone in a sad way and being alone in a very empowering way, right? The idea that you can be independent, you don't have to rely on anyone else for that type of, emotional affirmation and fulfillment. So, yeah, I definitely would affirm that view that films need to kind of start tackling that more if they're going to
Yeah.
present these issues.
At the very least, I want like the third act breakup, that like happens before, like, and that's like the final like stretch of the film is like, will they get back together? How will they like forgive them? Is there a second chance? Like stuff like that. I'm not gonna like do the hand smack because I know my mic is not gonna like that, but like I needed to like hit because I have not seriously cried at like a breakup in a very, very long time between fictional
Yeah,
characters.
because the reason that they break up are so contrived usually. Like, I hate, okay, I will say the movies that, My Fake Boyfriend being no exception, the miscommunication part, like the misunderstanding part, that's coming. The third act's like falling out. It's just so dumb each time. I will say it's handled better in this film compared to a lot of others, but
I know. I
yeah.
wish I could say why I appreciate how the breakup for at least between like the love interest, because like really the third act breakup for these characters is like between like the Andrew and like his friend.
Mhm.
And not so much like his like love interest. But I will say that like his love interest has like as the perfect reason to like leave in that moment, and it is spectacular. It is a spectacle of like how terrible that goes. Like, so like if you're not going to be like, heartbreaking enough for me, can you at least be like that cataclysmically awful?
Yeah. I
That's
yeah.
what I want.
I agree. I just think there needs to be a little bit more realistic situations. I mean, obviously, this was supposed to be pretty over the top, and once you see the film, you'll kind of understand. I mean, it's almost like a
You will
wonder.
understand immediately not to take anything too seriously.
I mean, yeah, it's shocking. Rafi even like after everything goes with Andrew, like it's a pretty shocking situation.
I don't know if that counts as a spoiler or not. It's a pretty tried and true romantic comedy trope
I
is that
mean,
they
I
do
think
end
it's
up with
known
them.
that they're going to end up with each other, right? I mean, we kept talking about the fact that they didn't have a sex scene, so I'm pretty sure you could infer that, they end up together, right? Sorry, spoilers, but it's a pretty like known fact going into a rom-com, right? The love interest and the protagonist are going to end up to each other, which I mean
True
would be
love
interesting to convert.
conquers all.
I mean, yeah, literally. So something you'll encounter.
Yeah. I think I mostly just like oh wait, no, you haven't seen Call Me by Your Name, have you? Well, it's like the very end, light spoilers, where he's just like crying in front of like the fireplace because like he finally got a call from like the guy that he had like a summer romance with. And he finds out that he's like married and like his wife is expecting. And like the ending credits of like the movie is just like him staring blankly into this like fireplace with like a Sufjan Stevens song like going on in the background. I need that, but I need it for Phoebe Bridgers, and I need the sapphic version of this movie that like also doesn't have like a weird age gap problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother issue with that. But yeah, and I
We,
can't
we love
obviously
a consensual age gap between adults, but this character is canonically 17, so
I
go
cannot
away.
speak to the intellectual property because of course I haven't read it and the original source material, and then like I didn't finish the movie. I was rather bored by it. It just wasn't my type of film. Obviously, it was something I think that was,
It is a movie for the Tumblr
yeah.
girls to like post gifs from the movie or images from the
Mhm.
movie on like their cinema accounts.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And for sure, I think
I will say
it's,
the book itself does not condone the relationship. It
yeah,
feeds into the misery of it quite a bit.
I think the film definitely took a certain interpretation with it from what I remember. But of course, I can't speak to it. And I actually, I think that same year though, I did watch Moonlight, which I think kind of left out a lot of the topics that needed to be discussed. I obviously know you can't really speak to it because you didn't watch it, but
No, I watched Moonlight. I watched it when it came out.
oh, with who? Did you go yourself
I
or?
went by myself. Yeah.
Oh, I guess we need to normalize going to the movies by yourself. That's fair. I mean, that's kind of
Everyone always makes fun of me for going to like movies by myself, and I'm just like, if I really want to see a movie and like I only have to pay like $10 for a ticket, I'm gonna go.
I mean, okay, but like going to movies, right? I feel like it's an inherently like you have to at least have another person with you. Not saying it has to be a couple thing, but like at least a group of friends. I don't know. It just seems like I don't know. Maybe that's me. I need to check my own like bias, but I just am like that's kind of lonely, like to go by myself.
Actually, but that's the thing. I kind of prefer it. I'm not gonna lie.
That's fair. I guess there's less fuss, and like you honestly can like get in and out so quickly. Like you don't have to wait for anyone to go to the bathroom or do anything. And also like you can kind of just enjoy it yourself, right? You're kind of in your own little world.
I know, because I feel like if I'm like, even if I'm with you, for example, like, and I'm like watching a movie, like I have a hard time feeling like I can get really into the movie because I'll be looking over to try to gauge your response to it. And like if I'm the only one that's like vibing to it, I'm gonna feel bad for recommending the movie.
Oh, do you do that? That's kind of cute. I didn't know you looked over. I mean, I do it sometimes, but I don't ever
I
really
always
notice.
do. I do it for everybody, so don't feel too special. But
Oh, well, like what? I'm interested. Now you have to tell me. Like, I didn't know you did that. Like, what were you? What do you look for? You just see my reaction to certain
I just
scenes.
see if you're bored.
Oh, I'm never bored. I mean, people I usually go with fall asleep. Like
My
so many
dad
people.
always falls asleep at the movies.
Some people I've been to the movies. Like my mom constantly went with her, a few years ago, and like when before the pandemic, we went very often, and she would literally always fall asleep, and she would say like she didn't, and I was like, I can literally hear you, like you definitely did, like. But yeah, I never bored at the movies. I can't say there's ever been one movie where I've definitely been like, at least in the theaters, because I'm very strategic with what movies I go see in theaters. Like if I
Same.
really, yeah, I don't just go see any film willy nilly. Like I have to really either have bought into the hype early on. It's an intellectual property I already know very well, like Mission Impossible, Marvel. Like if it's something I already know and has a track record and that I trust, like I'll go with it. I'm very reluctant to go with something like I know, like sight unseen. Like I haven't already looked at like some non-spoiler reviews. I haven't already gotten a sense of what people think about it, because it's just like I would have spent like for myself like what, let's say 11, $12 on something that like pretty disappointing. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's not that much in retrospect, but um I'm very strategic in general with what I purchase. So I guess it extends to movies as well, because I'm just like I want to get the most enjoyment out of like the least amount I can spend. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
It's
think I've ever walked out of a movie before, but I can think of movies where like I didn't watch them in theaters the first time I saw them, and when I watched them on streaming, I'm glad I didn't pay to go because I would have been really bored. I have a couple movies that come to mind. I don't know if it's safe for me. Is this a safe space for me to like shit on like movies that I probably would have walked out of boredom?
I mean, we might as well. I mean, we're done with our, I guess, our rom-com section for now.
I mean, we'll
And
go
then
back to it very like I
we'll
have
go
one
back.
more question for you at the very end that I asked
Okay.
like Jared. Um
Okay.
that I want to kind of like ask every guest, um
Wow, I feel so honored.
but yeah, basically if I had seen If Beale Street Could Talk, like the Barry Jenkins version in theaters, I would have heavily considered walking out.
Really? Wow.
It is a
Okay.
very slow, very dry movie. Like I love the soundtrack to it, don't get me wrong, and like the performances aren't bad, but like I think the thing with Barry Jenkins, at least with the movies that I've seen, I haven't watched the series that he did. Um he's like he is, he's a slow girly. He likes a slow burn with his
Yeah.
stories. He likes a lot of silence and quietness, and I liked that in Moonlight. I didn't really like that in Beale Street.
That's okay. I can see that. I can't ever say I've really felt the same, at least in terms of wanting to walk. I know
I've
I did
never
watch,
walked out of a movie before.
well, close to walking out, close to walking out. Like I know there was I think I went to go see the GI Joe movie. Oh my god. I yeah, I went with a friend, and that was honestly pretty bad in certain sections. So I definitely felt like I was very close. But at that point, you kind of get into your sunk cost fallacy. You're just like, well, I've been here already a long time. I might as well see it through. I don't think I'll ever get in a situation where like I'm like, it's not worth even staying for like the next half of the movie, or the latter half rather. So yeah, that must be pretty bad though. I didn't
Well,
know
yeah.
you had negative reaction to that film.
Well, yeah, because like the movies that I recommend. Like I definitely don't have a problem with like a slow drama that's like very, very methodical and very quiet. Because I feel like I've brought like a couple to movie
Oh, for
night.
sure. For sure.
So like if I'm bored by a movie, it has to be really, really, really slow. Well, I've kept you for pretty long at this point, and I don't want to. I mean, I say I don't want to like hold you forever here, but like you're literally in the other room, so I'm just gonna go hang out with you after this.
Yeah.
But before we wrap things up for this interview, I want to ask you a question that I asked my guest last night, and I'm tempted to keep asking even if we're not doing rom-coms anymore for like new guests, because I just think it's a fun question.
Sure.
um but I want you to build a rom-com. So who are your leads? Who is the best friend? What is the setting? What is the premise? And then if you're brave enough, what's the title?
Oh, wow. This is
I know
this.
it's I save it for the end because it flusters people.
I mean, I know this is kind of controversial, but I really would probably build it off of the model of Crazy Rich Asians. I kind of like the idea of there being a very rich protagonist and a very poor love interest, or like you could have it either way. I think the idea of a love interest who's rich is kind of good, and like a protagonist who's
That's the
poor.
best kind of wish fulfillment, is marrying into generational wealth.
I kind of like that, and only because I'm a little selfish in thinking that I would like benefit from that. So I'd honestly take it from Crazy Rich Asians, not obviously the actors per se. I mean, I think there were some great performances in that film. I mean,
You would
I think
cast them as the actual ethnicity they are.
well, I was about to say the in that film was not amazing. But obviously, yeah. I mean, of course, I love Aquafina. Like Aquafina has to be the best friend. Like that's I think she just
I know
naturally.
that's really controversial for a lot of people, and you will get a lot of hate on Twitter for that, but I agree.
I love Aquafina. I'm sorry. Like I know that there's been controversies in the past, and I mean I know we've had ample discussions about them
We've
without
had
much.
so many discussions about it.
Yeah, like I love Aqua. Like I loved her in Shang-Chi. Like she made that movie like pretty good. In which I mean, no offense against Simu Liu, but like he's not. I don't think he would have been great by himself. I think he plays off well. Like Aquafina is like the glue that holds things
It's such a
together.
bummer because like Simu Liu is like actually really funny in real life, and they just
I
don't
know.
use him.
I know. I don't know why the writers gave him nothing to work with. He was really chewing on scenery in that film, and it's just like Aquafina literally saved the day. So anyway, without going off, I think Aquafina definitely has to be the friend. Again, I'm an Aquafina fan. I just love her, especially having seen her performances more recently, and just going back and really getting a sense of kind of her long kind of track of career. And she's just the versatility she kind of brings to a performance, right? I think her comedic timing, just kind of her
I
sense of.
just think of like the interview that Lulu Wang had when she had her in The Farewell. And it's like she got her audition tape and she's like, "Isn't this the girl that sang My Vag?"
Yeah, no, I mean it's she's something special. So best friend for sure. I don't know about the lead though. I am very
Oh, come
conflicted.
on, you have to. You have to think of anyone.
I have to think about it, but I will go to setting first, and then maybe
Okay.
I'll circle back to it. Setting, I like the idea of like a snowy Christmas town because I personally like the holidays, right? I mean, I like the vibes. I generally like the idea of something very cold outside, a very warm kind of, er, I guess, rich cabin atmosphere, which to some, I guess, can be pretty creepy. But I personally like it. I think the idea of, kind of a rich protagonist bringing the rich love interest rather, bringing a poor protagonist up for, you know, a holiday vacation to visit the family, or maybe like this, you know, this kind of town, right, that they live in, this rich person coming in, right? Either way, they kind of bring this presence about them, that's, you know, kind of mystical, magical, wonderful. So I generally like it kind of fitting that theme of like snowy little progressive Vermont-esque town. I know that's generally the setting for a lot of rom-coms, especially the Hallmark movies.
It's a
So, you know,
staple.
of course. So like you gotta stick with your classics. So that's what I would say for that. At least setting and structure, and then like the best friend. I have to still think about the lead. I mean, because what tone do I want for the movie, right? I mean, I know there's so many you can go with, right? I mean, and we spoke about earlier having like a lesbian thing going on. So I mean, I like my sapphics, but I also like, you know,
It's okay if you want to just stare at guys. It's fine.
I mean, I'm split because like I honestly love a good sapphic tale, but I'm like also because, you know, we love, you know, cabin lesbians, but I also am selfish, so I would probably some eye candy, respectfully rather, that I'm able to look at. So who would give the best performance though out of the people I really like as like eye candy? Which I mean, of course, I'm not diminishing their talents, but I will say they are quite.
You can be the worst actor in the world, but if you're hot, you'll fit in fine in a romantic comedy.
It gives you bonus points, right? I mean, I think
Pretty privilege is real to me, very much
I
to me.
I think it's an actual thing that people.
I mean, yeah, it is.
I mean, yeah,
But it's
like
especially effective on me to a fault.
I mean, yeah. Generally, it can be pretty effective at getting me to really do a lot of things. Let's just say. Hmm. I'm just thinking like who would actually be a good actor though, because like I'm gonna immediately go to people I'm attracted to, but like I don't think they would necessarily fit the role that I'm really going for. Um, hmm. Well, I want to first see if you can guess who I'm thinking of. I'd be interested to see like what your thinking is, at least in terms of the people I've narrowed it down to see if we're kind of on the same wavelength.
I don't think we are. I'm not ready to play that game.
No. Shoot in the dark. I'm sure you have an idea.
Okay, wait. So I need some hints. Okay, so because we're playing 20 questions now.
Sure.
20 questions or guess who? I don't know.
Either one.
Okay, so has this person been in a movie we've watched together?
Yes.
Are they Asian?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, I can't remember everybody's names. That's the only thing. I think Joel Kim Booster definitely needs to get more romantic comedy roles, or just more roles in general for Joel Kim Booster, not Jim Cole Booster.
Oh my goodness, Lord. Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with him getting more roles. He's not the person I was thinking of, but yeah, I for sure would not mind him being a lead again. But there's other people. I mean, that's a good guess though. I actually wouldn't mind him being in a lead role. I mean, I know you said he personally did nothing for you. I thought
I didn't say he did nothing for me.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, for me, I just really liked his like kind of demeanor. It was more personality than anything. I felt like he really had a natural charisma for the role. But yeah. Who else? I guess one more guess, and then I'll just reveal it to you.
What? No, that was my guess.
Oh my god! So you have no other ideas for what it could possibly be?
I just can't remember people's names. That's the downside. I'm really bad with celebrity names.
Let's talk about characters then. I'm pretty bad at celebrity names too.
I mean, there were some hot ass people in Squid Game.
Yeah. Ooh, who were you thinking of? Which characters?
I mean, like the detective was pretty hot.
The detective?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember his character. The brother of the detective or the detective himself?
The detective himself, obviously. His brother was weird.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say because there was that Hong Jung Ho? I think that was Hong Jung Ho. Anyway, yeah, I agree. That's fair. I think he gave kind of a brooding atmosphere there. I don't know. Generally, I will say the people I'm thinking of are either Asian or black. So I'm definitely like in that category. I mean, there's like one white person that I would probably choose as like the
The
lead.
token white.
Of course, we got to have
So
it, but
so charitable.
like I have to say, my rom com again would be very progressive and would be pretty much all people of color. Nothing against white people, obviously, but
Nothing against the whites.
nothing
I
against.
thought that's what you said. I was just like, oh my god, mask
No.
off.
Why would I say that? I am very inclusive.
I am an ally.
Of course. No, but I mean there would be a healthy representation there. I generally would want my film to look like the rainbow, both sexuality wise and racially. Right. I mean I would want a pretty broad sweep there. I was surprised though that you actually found the detective attractive. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Okay.
You never told me.
Congrats.
I don't know. I guess we never watched Squid Game together. So
No, we didn't watch it together. I like watched all of it and I told you to watch it.
yeah, that's interesting though. Yeah, because I watched it after, and I remember I binged through that thing for it was so good.
So I finished it in one day,
I think
literally.
I finished it in one day or 2 days. I had to split it up over 2 days because I think I started in the evening and I was like, okay, I can't stay up all night. So I think I did have to
I
split
know,
it.
like I texted you around episode 4 and I was just like, you absolutely need to watch this.
It was so good. It did take me a little while. I know this is not a Squid Game stream, but it did take me a little while to like get onto it. But once you did, you're hooked. I mean, you're skeptical in the beginning, but it's just like, whoa, this is another level. It's really good. But anyway, I think the most powerful part obviously was like the like first third where like they had the option to leave. I'm sorry, light spoilers, but they had the option to leave, and then like they
The
realized how.
show's been out for over a year now. It's
I mean,
fine.
yeah, I know. I was about to say like at this point I don't give a shit. There's spoilers. They had the option to leave, and they chose to like leave. Most of them did. And they came back and they realized how shitty their lives are, and they voluntarily went back. Like that was so powerful to me, just to
Yeah.
show like it really is no different, right? I mean, obviously the metaphor is pretty clear, right? The game is very much the capitalistic system that they already lived in, right? Like there's really no difference. Just the violence is more explicit, right? Even though poverty, right, which we typically don't view as violence, is very much structural violence as well, right? There's structural violence and there's explicit violence. But anyway, we're not getting into a meta-analysis of this.
I was about to say stop stalling. Squid Game season 2, but stop stalling.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, yeah, and that needs to come very quickly, please. Anyway, we can have a discussion about structural violence another time, though. I am very interested in it. There's a lot of research.
I'm interested in structural violence.
Okay, you know what I mean. Studying and understanding it, reframing structural violence. Reframing social issues through the lens of structural violence. Anyway, God, who would be my lead? I honestly don't know. How did Jared answer? I'm going to steal his answer.
No, you can't steal Jared's answer.
No, but I have to. Me and Jared, we vibe on several levels. I don't know.
I'm not giving you.
I won't completely
check
chicken
the
out.
satisfaction.
Okay. Fine. I will think.
He did pick kind of like more daddies though, so that's why I feel like you might differ.
I honestly would want one daddy in there. Honestly, I would have Rafi being the lead. I honestly would, because
him as the lead instead of the interest.
Yeah, I think so.
Would he be like essentially the same character?
He definitely would have to have those daddy vibes. I'd want him going after a twink. I kind of want to.
So you just want a flip of
a role reversal.
Movie.
Yes, I'm so original. But I do actually want to see that. I mean, this does relate back to my other answer because, like, I do want to see how Rafi would do as a protagonist because, like, he's had some roles, the actor has, in, like, other things. I know he was in Handmaid's Tale. I know he did other things where, like, he has had a role. Like, he's had lines. He's had a story. So I think he's a competent actor. See, in my mind, I had to balance this out. Okay, I can't just think of like attractiveness because like I would put like Michael B. Jordan in the role, right? And I'm just like, he obviously wouldn't be great in a rom-com. So I got to consider the
What makes you think
elements.
he wouldn't be good in a rom-com?
I don't know if he would. I don't think he's more of a action hero, like, you know.
There are lots of action heroes that do rom-coms.
Uh, it does. I don't know if it would translate well for me, but I mean, I'm willing to give it a try in my fantasy environment.
I'm always willing to give him a try.
Number of people. I mean, if we're not going to put a limit on that, what did you say?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. And I'm looking up the detective character again. You're right. He's kind of cute. So
I'm telling you.
Okay, fine. I may put him there. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember like his acting ability in the previous, in Squid Game.
I don't know his like real life sexuality, so I might be breaking my rule about straight people playing gay people, but like,
well, yeah. I mean, in this reality, I'm just imagining things and manifesting them, so I'm not really considering
allyship is not linear.
Of course. Who else? I could think they're pretty good. Honestly, Chris Hemsworth, I think he would be a good rom-com lead.
Yeah.
I've liked his transformation as the character Thor. I mean, I'm not going to get into spoilers for Love and Thunder, obviously, but I think he gives.
Oh yeah, we definitely don't have time for Love and Thunder.
Oh yeah, I know. But yeah, I think he gives the most convincing performance, and I honestly could see him in a role that's more casual. Like I can imagine him being like the dude bro, protagonist from California, and he's coming up to this, retirement village in Vermont, right? I mean, for a slower pace of life, right? Getting away from the big city, because he, it fits his personality more, right? He's going into the Berkshires, or the Berkshires. How do you say that? I don't know. The mountains of Massachusetts are like Vermont, and like the Merrimack Valley or whatever. He's just in there, and he's vibing, and he meets his long lost lover around Christmas, and it's love at first sight in a long ways, and yeah, I can see that translating well. So I definitely like to see more of that. Kind of a Crazy Rich Asians style, but like set in a snowy, progressive rural town, of course. And yeah, you kind of get the opportunity to explore both the class dimensions, maybe different sexualities. Like I definitely like to see a bi protagonist, perhaps. I think that would be very interesting. It's definitely not something you often would see. Maybe grapple with previous feelings they have for their either friend or ex. Aquafina, of course, would be standing in this, I guess. And then, yeah, I think from there you could explore a lot. And I think in the end, I'm not sure, because I definitely want it to be a happy ending, but I'm not sure if I want to make it as simple as they're getting with him. Maybe it's a matter of them becoming friends and understanding that they can become something in the future, but they need to like take it slow. Because like maybe the love interest is like, hey, I've been hurt in the past, and I need more time to understand myself and be ready for a relationship. And it's implied that they get together, but it doesn't happen right away. I think that provides a very realistic timeline while also kind of being, a happy enough ending, I think, at least. So, it fills that kind of check box, I suppose, for the rom-com trope as a whole, or the rom-com genre, rather. But yeah, at least that's my thoughts. But that's very jumbled. But generally, the main themes would be lots of meet cute, some very interesting mutual pining. I definitely like to see that. And eye candy. I mean, this is the opportunity to get like attractive people. I'm just gonna be honest. That's what keeps it interesting. Because like you've already seen
True,
the tropes.
rom-coms are just like the perfect way to like get a bunch of hot people together and like give them like essentially a work vacation at like a random location.
Again, I am completely fine with this. So yeah, I would bring anyone on
I
board.
respect the level of money laundering that goes into making
Oh
these types of
man.
movies.
Oh man, I just can't imagine. Yeah, like the fact that they get to go to these venues, and I'm just thinking of the camera crew and like the fucking hotels they get to have, the resorts,
I mean,
and
I'm
the
sure the camera crew is treated like shit the entire time. Like, I think it's probably only fun for like the directors and like the
food. Yeah,
producers they bring along with like maybe some of the like the top actors. Everyone
maybe
else is like treated like shit the entire time.
that's probably more accurate, especially with the executives if they're more heavily involved in the project. I would say maybe the lead directors though. They can probably like your average cameraman, probably not, but like at least the top like leadership,
Yeah,
of the
like the
cinematography.
director of photography is probably okay,
Yeah.
but like the boom mic guy, like this was the worst 3 months of their life,
Oh, I bet.
guaranteed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I guess when I said camera people, I meant the upper people. Obviously, the people who just film scene to scene, yeah, they probably were stuck in a motel like 50 miles down the road.
They slept in their car.
Yes. Oh, man.
Okay, well, the one last thing, if you are brave enough, like I said,
Oh,
to have
title.
a title.
Oh, man. Hmm. First love.
First love. It's simple and sweet. I respect it. I respect
Yeah,
it.
I like
Okay,
first love.
Aaron Mills, everybody, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, it was a pleasure. And of course, it wasn't hard to convince me knowing that I'd get a
Knowing that you were
chance.
trapped here.
Well, I wouldn't use trapped. I mean, I got the chance to, in an unconventional way, get to spend, time that I otherwise wouldn't necessarily get to spend with you because, I'm usually away, and I only really get to see you in limited amounts of time during the week. So, yeah, it's just nice to kind of see you in your process, you going about your routines. And I know I've been a
You got
little
to
bit.
see me stress out so much this week just prepping for this stream.
Oh man, but no, it's been rewarding. I mean, not saying stressed out necessarily, obviously, but being there for you. I just think it's important that you have that support, and you know, obviously, not going to get too gushy over stream, but my feelings. But yeah, this was a great opportunity. I appreciate getting the chance to ramble as I typically do to you, and getting to kind of be on something that I know you put lots of effort in daily into making, you know, great. Both your stream and your content, and it's just so evident that you have so much love for this. So thank you for letting me share and be a part of that.
Hmm. And I only paid you to say half of that. So
Oh,
I love that for me. All right.
I am a quite premium, so.
I'll talk to you in like literally 2 minutes.
Uh,
Bye, everybody.
bye. Bye. Bye.